Wild rice, or minomen in the Ojibwe language, has been harvested since the Ojibwe came to this region hundreds of years ago, searching for the food that grew on water.
In what we call the Nishwashwiishkodekwan, the seven-fire prophecy, one of the original prophets told about migrating and traveling to a new land, a place where food grew on water. Of course, we're told that our ancestors didn't know about that, didn't know about wild rice. But they were looking for this land, and we're told in our legends that it was a 500-year journey that ultimately brought our ancestors to this area, to the Lake Superior area, northern Wisconsin, what we call Minnesota, into this region where they found this plant growing. Wild rice, minomen, really means, mino is good, and the min is the seed, so the good seed. And wild rice has been a staple of our people since that time. So wild rice has been a major part of our culture since the very beginning of our people coming into this area.
According to archaeologists, there were many different groups of people harvesting wild rice in this region before the Ojibwe, who are known to some as the Chippewa.
We have a number of sites located in northeastern Minnesota which indicate that the people were actively harvesting the rice for at least 2,500 years. The first people to harvest the rice are what we call the Laurel culture, or people of the Laurel culture. They began probably about 500 years before Christ until about 500 years after Christ. They were replaced by other late woodland or terminal woodland peoples, Black Duck, Selkirk, and Sandy Lake people who continue to harvest rice. And they harvested right up until the contact period when the Ojibwe came into the area, shortly after that. And the Ojibwe continued to harvest rice. Okay, as with any grain worldwide, wild rice in northern Minnesota has been a very important economic staple to the populations from 2,500 years ago right up through the present.
For centuries, Ojibwe people have continued harvesting wild rice, maintaining a cultural continuum through the years.
So it's clear that it's been at the center of their culture for a long, long time, the same way the corn is for other Indian groups. The principal means of harvesting wild rice has really not changed too much. I mean, there are certainly from all the historical records we have, people did go out, because it is an aquatic grass, they did go out in boats of some sort, rice in canoes. Among the Ojibwe, for instance, one person would pole, and a couple of people would be seated in the boat and would bend the kernels into the boat and knock them free into the bottom of the boat. Some things have changed. I mean, rice in canoes, which were birch bark, have given way to aluminum canoes, or probably first canvas canoes even, and then aluminum. And any kind of a thin boat actually will work that can be poled through the rice fields. Ricing sticks and poles used to move the boat have probably not changed for centuries. The processing of the rice, too, I suspect, has not really changed. I mean, the rice has to become dried. It has to have dirt and pebbles and detritus and rice worms and all those other things that come in with the bottom of a canoe removed from it. It has to get the barbed ends of the chaff singed off, and a certain amount of roasting technique done to the kernel itself for preserving it so that it's ready to be cooked or can be stored away for some time. One practice which has disappeared in the whole question of the traditional harvest of wild rice was the practice of being able to bind the rice in sheaves before it ripens as a means. Well, binding did several things. It marked a family's rice bed. It also prevented the wind and birds from getting the kernels before. So once they were ripe, all you had to do was to go out there and to cut the binds, and you just grab the sheaf and shake the whole thing. Many elders tell me that in the old days when they bound rice, they used to be able to get a lot more of it. It didn't take as long to fill up a canoe. So I don't know, but that's a practice that seems to have disappeared probably by the 1940s, I would guess. Although most elders today can remember it. So geographically it's important, religiously it's important, culturally it's just something I think Ojibwe people identify with. It is essentially an Ojibwe occupation, and it's central to their seasonal understanding of the year.
The Ojibwe cherish wild rice, and many people believe that it was put here as a sacred plant, requiring an offering before harvesting and a ceremony after the gathering of the first rice of the season.
Our folks would go out and pick for probably about a half an hour, and they would bring it in, and they would parch it, and they would jig it. They would jig it, they'd fan it, they'd cook it. And just about all the people, the whole community had their own kettles, you know, and they'd bring it up to the community gathering where a traditional drum would be, and the elder would do the offering, the ceremonial offering, and they would have material things there too as gifts, because the tobacco and the food and the material things go up to the supernatural world. We believe that when we give to them, they're going to take care of us. And when we receive something from the earth, we always give something back in a way of a ceremony. And that's how we believe that the spirit of all the food and the material things go up with the tobacco. This is Bois Forte. It's a band off the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. We're going to be ricing on Nett Lake. We always make a offering of the sacred tobacco before we go out on the lake. That's not to ensure a greedy harvest, but a safe. In other words, we're asking permission to use the lake. Okay, let's go. Well, it's a nice day. Leaves are turning already. Look at them. We have a lot of keepers on a lake, you know, like spiritually. And the little keeper out there that we always run into, a little bitty brown bird, I think his American name would be a Virginia rail. It's some kind of a rail, common rail or something like that, but to us as Inaabidaa people, we call him a rice bird, the keeper of the rice. He's a little small little critter, but he has a big responsibility that the Creator has given him. Manu minikeshi, That's his Indian name. I have a nephew that's named Menominee. At first, when he got that name, he was kind of, you know, everybody wants to be named after a thunderbird or an eagle or whatever. You know, all these big fancy tough names or whatever. But he didn't really go for this Menominee bit until after when he got older. And I told him how important that little bird was. You know, how much of a big responsibility such a little critter has. You know, that the Great Spirit had put upon him, and how much trust, faith that he had in him to be the keeper of the wild rice. That's our story. Is that how that part goes on. But after, when he found out how important and how much trust and faith the keeper gave in that little bird, then he started feeling better, powerful about his name. This rice right now is really in prime shape, you might say. The way they tell is the stalks, the rice stalks, the grass is all brown and dried out. That's how they tell that it's really ripe. You don't have to hit it hard. If you can leave the stalk standing, you're doing great. But sometimes, though, it can be helped to break a few stalks. And then the knocking sticks are, like I said, they're made out of cedar, and they're supposed to be a certain length. They're only, I believe, 30 inches. They've always been like that ever since. You can't go out there with 36-inch knocking sticks. A polar, he watches the rice up ahead, and he keeps turning toward the darker heads. The darker heads indicates that it's more ripe. Long time ago, our ricing equipment was made up of. They had a regular old fork out of the wood, like an elm or something like that, a real strong wood, and a spruce pole from the swamp, and a real straight and thin, and that's what they tied it up with whatever. And in the days before wire, they would use the regular basswood fiber. The inner bark they call weegoop. That's what they used then. Today they have, instead of using that elm, that crutch elm, today modern, they call it a duckbill. It's aluminum, and it when you project it into the mud or the rice stalk, it opens up, and when you pull a stick and it closes back up. This is a good year for just about everything. Like all the berries were plentiful this year, and the rice is pretty good. I wouldn't say that this is a bumper crop, but you know, it's better than average. The cold, severe winter that we had, and I think all the ice that froze down to the bottom of the mud, and in the springtime, during the ice out, the ice moves a little bit, which churns the bottom. Just a natural thing. Nice day for a tan, huh, Dan? I think there's still a lot of good rice out there yet. Still a lot of good picking. Oh boy. I All right down there. Pretty good. Feel pretty good. Hold on there, Squidge. I don't want to tip you over. When we get off the lake, immediately we bag it up. We put it in bags over from the canoe into bags like this. We bring it home. When we have it drying like this, we always turn it like this every so often, but maybe about at least 3 or 4 times a day, if we can. But normally, the better part is at least once or twice anyway. Otherwise, it might get moldy, especially if it's damp. The parcher that we're using right there, it'll take about one good full sack of rice, which is about 70 pounds, pretty close to 70 pounds of rice that we can do.
My grandpa had a house in Nett Lake, and that's where everybody would come, you know, to go ricing in Nett Lake, and that's where we'd be. And there'd be campers around my grandpa's house, and they'd all have a parching place to parch, and they'd all take turns parching rice, and everybody would cook in my grandpa's house, and so we had a job, you know, with as little as we were, we'd try and do our best. We used to always get time out for school so we could help with, ricing to help earn school clothes money. We'd help parch rice and then help bag rice down by the lake, or we would help carry stuff, and then us girls, we had to cook dinners and make lunches for the people that are working, and clean up the house, do dishes, and that was part of helping with the ricing and stuff. To us, you know, the way we feel about wild rice it is very important to us, because we'd like to keep the tradition going, you know, our way, you know, doing the traditional way, like we try, and we'd like to show our kids, you know, how we were, you know, raised and what we were taught. And I don't know, it's just something that should go on.
About 250. It's a family thing. Elders, young people like we have today that I brought here. As I remember, they used to parch it like we do, you know, basically today, but they didn't have them great big pans. They had little bitty containers, you know, the wash tubs, or either big cast iron kettles that they were able to salvage or save or whatever. I remember one of our main jobs was to do the jigging after our parents would be doing all the parching, and me and my brother and my dad would be doing all the fancy footwork, you might say. But it was good. I guess doing that, you'll learn, you know, to contribute to the family as that was part of our job, just the same way with anything else, hauling wood or water in them days. This is our finished product right here. That's what we're doing there after it comes back from the thrasher and fanner. I just finish it like this and keep it. I keep it for my own home use and a lot of ceremonies. I do a lot of ceremonies and I give it away. I give it away to a lot of elderly that come in from different reservations and stuff like that. And I sell, I sell some for whoever needs, wishing for hand finished rice. But I don't sell that much anymore. I just keep it mostly for myself and family, for people that can't get it. More rewarding that way. There's a lot of people yet on a reservation that still maintain Chippewa, our Anishinaabe traditions and culture. I think that there's more and more people that are coming back. When I was a kid, I remember being teased or being called a Indian by some of my own peers, and today it's different. I grew up with a language and the traditions and customs and everything else like that, and I maintain it and I pass it on to my children. More and more people are trying to come back to the old customs and traditions and the ceremonies and whatnot, the naming ceremonies and everything else like that. Now it is. In my younger days, it was not cool, I suppose you would say, to have an Indian name. But today it is different. It's altogether different. Now it is cool to have an Indian name.
Though times have changed, the Ojibwe continue their traditional wild rice harvest. During the seasonal harvest, Ojibwe people renew their connections to their ancestors and to the land, the water, and their ceremonies.
I think it might be even, in some senses, even genetic with people. It's part of the DNA almost. You don't know why you do something except that you know it's the right thing to be doing at that time of the year. And I think that probably has some things to do with it. And I'm sure nowadays there's some economic gain can be made from it, but it's so hard. I don't think people ever really receive in money terms what that rice is really worth. But some people have to do it to supplement incomes. And it may be a pride thing also, being able to do something like that, being able to get out on the water and to harvest something that our ancestors relied so heavily on. Being able to do that, it's a real strong connection with that ancestral spirit, as it were. Monoman and the harvesting of wild rice is, in a sense, almost synonymous with the Ojibwe people. I mean, you can't really think about woodland the tribes up north, especially the Ojibwe, without thinking of wild rice. I have a feeling that it's more of a sense of it's more of a cultural sense that's just inside you. That's something that your people have done, that you want to do, that reconnects you not only with the land but with the environment, with everything around you, because you're out there all day. All this interaction that's taking place around you with the ducks coming in, the ducks being around this area, because of course they're after wild rice. All these things that are happening. One of the most interesting things that I used to watch was these ospreys fishing out there. I mean, in this very shallow water, because that's where wild rice grows, is those fish hawks, flying around and diving, coming down like a bullet and hitting the water, I mean, as a young boy, that was the greatest thing in the world to see. But all of these interactions that was taking place, that's part of who we are as a people. That's the Ojibwe.